Next, I'm very pleased to introduce the National Citizenship Education Teacher of the Year, representing grades K through 5, Bobbie Schamens of Sparta, Wisconsin. Bobbie brings her personal experience as a military spouse and infuses it into her curriculum as a 4th grade teacher at Meadowview Intermediate School. In addition to teaching civic responsibility, patriotism, and proper flag etiquette, her class makes cards to be included in military care packages, and she regularly recognizes local military and veteran families with a military tribute case near her classroom. It is through these activities that Bobbie is able to infuse the ideas we hold dear to her young students. It is teachers like Bobbie who are paving the way for the leaders of tomorrow, and to her, we're grateful. Please join me in welcoming Bobbie Schamens, sponsored by VFW Post 2112 and its auxiliary in Sparta, Wisconsin.
I had to check the time. I can still say good morning. Good morning, and thank you for this honor and opportunity to come and share with you today. I would also like to say thank you to all the VFW men and women for your dedication and sacrifices that you have made for this country. Thank you to the VFW Post number 2112 and District 11 for your support and opportunities that you have given to me and many teachers over the years. My heart truly runs over with gratitude and pride for all VFW men and women. My sense of patriotism and pride comes from my parents and many military family members who are currently serving and who have served. As a military wife of a retired military veteran, I know firsthand the sacrifices that you have made for this country and for your families, and that I'm truly thankful for. I believe opportunities come to us for a reason. It was a little over a month ago that I had to go to the bakery to pick up some frosting to do a couple graduation cakes. School was still in session and I had about 1 million things running through my mind. My son and I were rushing around the corner of the bakery and I happened to see an elderly man sitting there through the window. His hat had caught my eye. It had read, World War II veteran. I looked at my son and I said, I know that we're in a hurry, but I need to stop and take a moment to speak to this gentleman. I approached the man and his family, and I said, excuse me, sir, I need to thank you for your service that you have made for this country. He looked into my eyes and he said, thank you, and he began to share his story and his experiences that he had with the military. His family was extremely grateful that I had taken time out of my day to stop and thank him. They told me that it was just in the last few years that he was able to open up and talk about the experiences that he had had. As we parted ways, we walked out of the bakery, and my youngest son asked me why we had stopped to talk to this man when we didn't even know him. I said to him that we should always take time to thank a veteran or anyone who has helped us to maintain and keep our freedoms. Who knew that this little trip to the bakery would lead to an opportunity to share about history, patriotism, and being a good citizen, most importantly, allowing a veteran to tell his story. This is what I want to take to share with you today, is about experiences that we have in our everyday life that truly make a difference in what you do and what we do. My experience as a military wife and teacher have helped me relate to my students and their families in the community that I serve. These experiences impact my teaching, and they generate meaningful conversations inside and outside the classroom. Every day we are presented with opportunities to teach this younger generation. I like to capitalize on these opportunities when they come up. At the beginning of the year, I take the opportunity to talk about patriotism. Every day at Meadowview Intermediate in Sparta, Wisconsin, we start our day by saying the Pledge of Allegiance. I take time to talk about the importance of our flag and why we say the Pledge of Allegiance. I want students to understand that this should not just be a part of a routine or something that we do every day, but I want them to understand that there is a history there and it has a much deeper meaning. Throughout the year, we have many opportunities to discuss American history. In November, my class is responsible for a display case that's outside my window. I have mentioned that these opportunities, when they present themselves, we need to capitalize on them, and we do. So our class sends out a school-wide note asking for military memorabilia to go into the display case. This not only gives students the opportunity to learn about their family history, but it sparks amazing discussions about our American history. It never ceases to amaze me how many students will say that they did not have a family member that served in the military, but they come back with pride in their eyes and they say, "Mrs. Schamens, you were right. I did have somebody who served in the military." Students also get many opportunities to demonstrate citizenship inside and outside of the classroom. They need to understand that this is their community and their country, and they are a part of it. One way that we get involved is we hold various drives for military members and send care packages overseas. We also take many opportunities in our classroom to participate in penny wars for the Sparta Area Cancer Society. One year we held a penny war to collect money for a student in need. As a school, we raised enough money for her to receive her prosthetic ear. It was not just one student, one classroom, but a whole school that came together for this great cause. This is what good citizenship is about. It's amazing to see how these small acts of kindness can impact others in big ways. My classroom is also involved in an intergenerational program. Once a month, my class and 2 other classrooms visit local nursing homes. We are paired then with an adopted grandparent. We share about our life experiences and memories as we make new ones. And in the process, we find out that many of our grandparents are retired military veterans. It's so amazing to see these little light bulbs come on and the students making these connections. I cannot say enough about the school and staff that I work with. We work hard to bring our school and community together. I leave you with this today. When opportunities present themselves, use them. It's our stories, our life experiences, our history that are the most powerful teaching tools that we have. Never let an opportunity slip by. Take time to listen to each other, share your stories, because we are truly inspirations to each other. Thank you again for this honor. I truly appreciate every single one of you, and I will never take for granted the opportunities that your service to this country has provided for myself and others. Thank you, and God bless.
Next, I'm very pleased to introduce the National Citizenship Education Teacher of the Year representing grades 6 through 8, Ann Martin of Tracy, California. No one understands sacrifice like our Gold Star families, and for Ann, it's her family's sacrifice that encourages her to teach her students on the importance of making sure our veterans, service members, and their families are never forgotten, especially those in her Tracy, California community. Through school-wide campaigns for donations and thank you letters for deployed troops and organizing her school's Patriots' Day ceremony, her patriotic spirit is felt throughout her community, and students have learned throughout Ann's 24-year career to better understand the sacrifices made by our military and veteran families. Please join me in welcoming Ann Martin, sponsored by VFW Post 1537 in Tracy, California.
Let me begin by saying how extremely honored I am to be receiving this award. I'm humbled that you feel that I am worthy of such recognition. Excuse me. Thank you to each and every one of you. I would also like to personally thank Commander Von Gates from VFW Post 1537 for initially nominating me. To my students in the Williams Middle School community, thank you for always supporting my efforts in recognizing our veterans and fallen. And of course, I cannot forget my husband, Philip, and my two sons, Philip and Armando. Thank you. I just love teaching. I've loved the challenges it presents. I've loved the victories and sometimes defeats, large and small, that occur on a daily basis as struggling students strive to achieve their goals. I've loved learning from my students as they open my eyes to new perspectives, and most importantly, I have, over the past 24 years, loved watching my students mature into independent and creative thinkers. As the Student Government Advisor, I have the privilege of helping our young leaders organize many activities that promote citizenship, responsibility, and respect. Together, these students and I have planned and implemented canned food drives. We have recognized deployed troops and veterans through thank you note writing, rock painting, patriotic spirit days, and door decorating contests. We have honored our fallen, first responders, and active duty militaries during Patriot Day memorial ceremonies. We have also coordinated Patriots Pens essay contest at our site and a chain of thanks for our local VFW. We have organized dances, rallies, spirit weeks, fundraising activities, and even a talent show. Although all of these activities have special meaning, my favorite is running the student government elections, because it is through this activity that I can teach students about the patriotism and democracy. I'm able to impart to them that the simple privileges of voting in a school election and just going to school has been paid for by the sacrifices of many, that we owe our democracy to those who are willing to spill their own blood to sign that blank check in order to defend it. Watching students learn this valuable lesson as they engage in the democratic process is the highlight of my year. What has inspired me throughout my teaching and organizing of these activities and events is you, the veteran, the defenders of liberty, and my personal heroes. From the time I was a child, my parents fostered in me a deep and abiding appreciation for those who serve or have served in our country's military, an appreciation that is my mission to impart to my students. I was raised on stories of my grandparents hosting British and American sailors on liberty during World War II and the lifelong friendships that resulted. I was told of how my father's uncle, a POW in the Philippines, was liberated through the courage and sacrifice of our military. And as I grew older, my experiences grew deeper, and my respect and awe for you, our nation's heroes, became an integral part of my life. From being overcome by emotion on my first visit to Arlington National Cemetery, by the sight of those white stones stretching for acres and acres, to the realization that these men and women, your fallen brothers and sisters, gave up their futures to ensure that I and the rest of the country and even the world had one. From telling my own sons of the bravery of their grandpa Phil, a Korean War veteran who who patrolled the DMZ, and of their grandpa Herb, who, as a sergeant in the Korean War, carried the BAR, to the placing of wreaths at the gravesites of our town's Little Arlington. From watching my parents help out friends who served in Vietnam with a place to stay, a warm meal, and often free dental work, to walking along the Vietnam Veterans Memorial Wall with students and relaying to them the honor, the courage, and the brotherhood of not only those named on the wall, but also of those who came home, sometimes to unfriendly faces. From watching my parents glow with pride as my nephew graduated from boot camp and began his journey as a United States Marine, to facing the fear a family member experiences as a loved one is deployed to war, from suffering the anxiety, the pit in the bottom of your belly, when I received word that my nephew, Gunnery Sergeant George Fagoni Jr., who was loved as a cherished baby brother, had been severely wounded during a skirmish in the mountains of Afghanistan, to that knee-weakening sense of relief when he finally returned home. I have felt the apprehension that comes when that same hard-headed Marine Raider chose to remain in the Corps, because to him, the Corps was life and his teammates his brothers. And I have felt my heart break as I listened to the haunting sound of taps and watched as my mother received the folded flag that lay on Georgie's coffin on a rainy Virginia day in December 2011. I do what I do for all of you here. I do it for them, Gunnery Sergeant George L. Fagoni, his team leader, Gunnery Sergeant Jonathan Gifford, for Army Specialist Kelly Mixon, for Army Ranger Ryan Coyer, for Sergeant Matthew Maddox, for all of the fallen. I do it so that their stories and yours are told. I do it so that their sacrifice and yours will not be forgotten. I do it to teach my students about the true cost of living in a free society. I do it so that they will one day teach their children that freedom is not free. I do it because, as Ronald Reagan once said, freedom is never more than one generation away from extinction. We didn't pass it on to our children in the bloodstream. The only way they can inherit the freedom we have known is if we fight for it, protect it, defend it, and then hand it to them with the well-fought lessons of how they, in their lifetime, must do the same. Thank you all for your service, and thank you for this most prestigious honor. Thank you.
Last but not least, in the high school division, I'm pleased to welcome the National Citizenship Education Teacher of the Year, representing grades 9 through 12, Kevin Wagner of Carlisle, Pennsylvania. The curriculum required in advanced placement courses is intense. So when a teacher is able to go beyond those requirements, it makes for an impactful experience. For Kevin's AP History students at Carlisle High School, this impact hits close to home. Through his Silent Heroes project at Carlisle High School, students explore the life and service of a local World War II veteran killed at Normandy and create a webpage preserving their legacy. Last year, Wagner's project expanded to identify local Vietnam War veterans, leading to the construction of a Vietnam Wall of Honor, which displays the names of more than 213 local veterans killed during the war. There's no doubt the impact he has had on his students is one that will last a lifetime, ensuring the stories of local veterans are remembered and treasured. Please join me in welcoming Kevin Wagner, sponsored by VFW Post 477 and its auxiliary of Carlisle, Pennsylvania.
This may be harder than a room full of 30 teenagers. Good afternoon, veterans, guests, and fellow honored teachers. I'd first like to recognize all the veterans here today from the great state of Pennsylvania. Where are you? There they are. Who saw fit to recognize my efforts in the classroom and put my name forward for this very distinguished award. I would particularly like to thank VFW Pennsylvania Post 477 and Post Commander Rick Olson. Mr. Olson has been an ardent supporter and a dear friend of my efforts for the past 2 years since we began the Vietnam Wall of Honor, and I value his partnership that he's afforded to me. I also would like to thank a very supportive administration and all my colleagues back home in Carlisle, Pennsylvania, for their strong support every year. And to all the veterans in this hall, I am humbled by your presence. I stand here today on the shoulder of giants, each of you for your service to our country, and each of my students who make me a better person and a teacher every year. I honestly believe teachers have one of the greatest callings on earth. Each of us as educators, like each of you as veterans, know what it means to be of service to our fellow human beings. Almost exactly 8 years ago today, I was afforded a unique privilege to study World War II in Normandy, France, with a student of mine, Sam Spare, along with 14 other student-teacher teams. One of the requirements of the program was to research a person from our home state who's buried in Normandy American Cemetery. Sam was lucky enough to learn of a graduate from our high school from the class of 1941, William Thomas McCabe, who's buried at Normandy, whom no one knew about. Over the course of 4 months, Sam scoured the internet, dived into the National Archives, and interviewed living family members to learn the story of William McCabe. And when we arrived at the Normandy Cemetery, Sam gave a very personal eulogy to William, standing alongside his white cross as it gleamed in the sun overlooking Omaha Beach. But as Sam gave his eulogy to William, I remember looking out over the 9,380 white crosses and stars of David, wondering about all the other untold life stories that were housed within each marker. The thought that kept rolling around in my mind was, each of these men left behind was not what was engraved in their stone, but it was what is woven into the lives of others that came after them and remembered their life story. As Joshua Chamberlain once said at the dedication to the 20th Maine in Gettysburg, not far from my hometown in 1889, in great deeds something abides, and on great fields something stays. Forms change and pass, bodies disappear, but spirits linger to consecrate the ground for the vision place of souls. And reverent men and women from afar, and generations that know us not, and that we know not of, are heart-drawn to see where and by whom great things were suffered and done for them, shall come to the deathless field to ponder and dream. A month after that trip from France, Sam shared with me a story. He was sitting for his senior picture that would appear in the yearbook. And he told me that as he sat in his starched dress white shirt and tie and blazer, he couldn't help but think of the bright smile of William T. McCabe, who 70 years earlier sat for that same picture for the Carlisle High School senior yearbook. Sam wondered, would anyone ever look back at his senior portrait with the same amount of respect and gratitude that he had for William? I realized because of Sam's story but he now understood the power of sacrifice, in which so many men and women in our great country have ultimately given for our freedoms. I wanted all my students to make that connection. All of this became the impetus for the Silent Heroes program, which all of my students have taken part in each year for the past 8 years. The goal, albeit lofty, is to have all 9,380 soldiers' stories come back to life through the creation of a memorial website in their honor. Every year, each of my students selects one soldier buried at Normandy to research, build a website that tells their early life, their hometown, their high school years, and their experience during D-Day. To date, we have honored 129 men and women buried at Normandy, bringing back to life their personal stories. But in the process, students have come to seemingly adopt their soldier as their own personal family member. Just literally on Friday, with very little sleep, I've returned from a trip, my third one, to Normandy with 11 of my students. And after visiting the grave of William T. McCabe for the third time, every student with me was given the opportunity to visit the gravesite of the researched silent hero they had done in the past year or two. After all the students had completed their memorial, every single one of them asked, "Mr. Wagner, can we go back to our soldier and spend some time with him alone?" Can you imagine what it was like and the power that was felt to see a group of young teenagers sit quietly at the foot of a soldier's grave and have a personal conversation with each and every one of them? Perhaps one of my students from a few years ago perhaps sums up the Silent Heroes Project when she wrote a poem to her soldier at the end of this project, and it has always stuck with me. She selected him simply because he had the same last name that she did, but no relation. Her poem says, "For Donald Mallard, when we first met, you in back letters and I in ignorance, name after name rolled by a screen, and you captured me because you were mine. Deeper I dug, but could not find you. Always you hid from my inquisitive eyes, searching, seeking, rummaging through time and space so I could hold your hand, but always there were nuggets, never rivers of gold. Slowly, you formed a picture in me, vague, foggy, but there, until I knew you were just from the effort of looking, until you revealed a face so lovely, so young, so noble, but gone. I wish now I'd been there that day to stop the bike, to catch you as I fell, because you deserve so much more from life and from me. But I wasn't. I couldn't. And I'm sorry. So here we are, you and me. This is my gift to you, the brave, the unknown, the hero. Just a small piece of your beautiful life so all the world can know you like I do. Sleep well under this marble cross. Guard forever these broken shores, and know that memories fade, but you will always have a peace in my heart. Thank you forever and always." Too often, I believe the men and women that serve in our military get little or no credit for their valor. I believe it is my duty to educate our young people in order to tell the stories of all of our brave men and women who have sacrificed so much for their fellow citizens throughout history. Just as I read on a memorial wall during my recent visit last week to Normandy, war graves are the great communicators of peace. Each of the men and women who lie in those graves have much to communicate to our young people today. I have much more work to do when it comes to educating our young people about the sacrifice of war, and you can rest assured that my work shall continue so that all of your individual stories are told for generations to come. I believe the survival of our great nation depends on it. Thank you again for this very high honor that you bestow upon me. It is more worthy of my students than of myself. And thank you for your service and your sacrifice to our great nation. Thank you.